Hey y'all, this video is an introduction to SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. First, I'm going to talk about the difference between SSDI and other government programs. Then I'm going to go over who's eligible for SSDI, how to apply, and how to appeal if your claim is denied. SSDI is a federal program run by the Social Security Administration, the SSA. It provides benefits to people who can't work because they have a medical condition that's expected to last at least 1 year or result in death. The program is funded by payroll taxes, and your past earnings determine your benefit amount. There is a maximum amount of benefits you can get each month, but there's no limit on the total amount you can receive over your lifetime. Benefits can continue as long as you're disabled and you meet the other requirements. When you reach the age of retirement, you'll start receiving Social Security retirement benefits instead. SSDI is easy to confuse with SSI, Supplemental Security Income. Both are disability programs run by the SSA, but they're different. SSDI is for people who have worked for a sufficient amount of time in the past. People are able to get benefits if they've paid enough in payroll taxes over time. In contrast, SSI is for people with limited income and resources, regardless of how much they've worked in the past. SSI is based on financial need, not your work history. Some people will qualify for one program but not the other, and some people may qualify for both. SSDI is a long-term disability program. As I said, it's for people who can't work because they have a medical condition they expect to last at least 1 year or result in death. If you have a temporary disability lasting less than a year, you should see if your state has a short-term disability program. In California, we have state disability insurance, which provides temporary benefits up to 12 months. And finally, if your disability is from a work-related injury, you should also look into workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is a state program that pays benefits to employees who have a work-related injury, regardless of whose fault the injury is. It's possible to get benefits from workers' compensation and SSDI at the same time. However, your SSDI benefits will be reduced to account for the money that you get from workers' compensation. To qualify for SSDI, you must be disabled. Disabled means you can't engage in any substantial gainful activity for at least 12 months. In other words, you can't earn a sufficient amount of money by working. There are special rules for people who are blind, but for everyone else, the SSA uses a 5-step process to determine whether someone is disabled. First, your monthly earnings must be below a certain limit. This limit is updated every year. In 2021, the limit for someone who isn't blind is $1,310 per month. I'll include a link below to a page with more information about the limit. Second, your condition must be severe. It must significantly limit your ability to do basic work activities like lifting, standing, walking, sitting, or remembering for at least 12 months. Third, your condition must be in the SSA's listing of impairments, also called the Bluebook. I'll include a link below to it. If your condition is listed, you're disabled and you don't need to continue to steps 4 and 5. If your condition is not listed, you can still prove you're disabled by passing steps 4 and 5. Step 4 requires that your condition interfere with your ability to do your previous work. If not, then you're not disabled and you can't get SSDI. If yes, then you can continue to step 5. For step 5, your condition must prevent you from doing other work. The SSA will consider things like your medical condition, age, education, work experience, and skills. If you can do other work, then you are not disabled. If you can't do other work, then you are disabled. To get SSDI, you must also pass 2 different earnings tests. The first is called the Recent Work Test. This test requires that you worked for a sufficient amount of time during the period immediately before you became disabled. The second test is called the Duration of Work Test. It requires that you worked for a certain number of years throughout your lifetime. Basically, these tests look at whether you worked for long enough and recently enough to justify getting benefits. I'll include a link below to more information about how to apply these tests. If you qualify and start receiving benefits, the SSA will periodically check to make sure you still meet the requirements. These checks are called Continuing Disability Reviews, or CDRs. As part of these reviews, the SSA may ask you to submit new medical records or other information. If you qualify for SSDI, certain family members may also be able to get benefits if they were dependent on your income. This can include spouses, ex-spouses, children, and grandchildren. You can apply for SSDI online, by phone, or by making an in-person appointment. I'll include a link below to the documents you need when applying. The SSA can take between 3 and 5 months to process an application. If you're approved, you'll receive a letter showing your benefit amount and when your payments start. You can receive up to 12 months of retroactive payments for the time you were disabled before you filed your claim. However, there's usually a 5-month waiting period for claims. This means you won't get benefits for the first 5 months after your disability began. If you don't have sufficient medical documentation, the SSA may have a doctor examine you. This is called a consultative examination. It's very important you go to this exam if needed, because if you don't, the SSA will close your case and you'll have to reapply. If the SSA denies your claim, they'll explain why and tell you how to appeal. There are 4 different levels of appeal. You can appeal first by filing a request for reconsideration within 60 days. The SSA will take a fresh look at your case and any additional documents you provide. But only a small number of decisions get reversed at this stage. If your claim is still denied after the request for reconsideration, you can file a request for hearing within 60 days. The SSA will then schedule a hearing with an administrative law judge. If you get to this point, you should really consider hiring a lawyer to represent you. At the hearing, the judge will question you and any witnesses you bring. You or your lawyer can also question the witnesses. The judge will then make a decision and mail it to you. If you lose at the hearing, you can appeal within 60 days to the Social Security Appeals Council and then again to federal court. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Good luck to you.